Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. Today we are smoking the cigar of the week, the Don Doroteo Salt of the Earth Piedra Viva.
But before we get to that, in case you don't know who we are, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert and the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam. I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And today we are finding the best possible pairings for this. I'm going to try it. Don Doroteo Salt of the Earth Piedra Viva cigar.
Boom!
I like it.
Don Doroteo.
It's almost musical saying it. It kind of has a rhythm to it. The
Don
name
Doroteo
there.
Salt of the Earth Piedra Viva.
Exactly.
You can make a song. There you go.
Oh, I guess I got to hit everybody with our trivia for this week.
Here we go.
I had to find a way to make it not obvious. So this is the not obvious way. So the whiskey lovers listening might already know. This is a true or false trivia. You got a 50-50 shot, okay? True or false? Bourbon is the reason that you can go to the store, you can buy something, you can walk through the food aisle, grab a gallon of milk, grab a gallon of apple juice, and trust the thing that you are getting. You can trust if you're buying milk, you're getting milk, and it's not going to poison you. Bourbon is the reason for that. True or false? And I'll just leave it there.
Here's my thought that I think everybody else is going to be thinking.
Okay.
You couldn't have made that up.
Okay.
That would be an awfully creative false.
Yeah.
Unless,
right.
Unless it's a trick question.
Well,
that's
you know how I like the trick questions.
Yeah, this is a trick question. Everybody just don't pay attention to Chris's trivia questions anymore. He's fooling us all.
Is it a trick question, or was that too hard to make up? It's tough to say.
Would have been awfully interesting. I mean, before we went live, it was took a little second to think of it, so it could be false, guys. A little sneak peek. He thought about that for a while, so that could be false.
Let me just say the first way that I was going to ask it made it way too obvious, so I definitely tweaked the way that I stated the question. So now you'll just have to figure out if it's a trick question, if it's not a trick question, how close to the truth is it? If it's false, how far from the truth would it be?
So it's not 50-50.
Not quite. If you just take a random guess, it's 50-50.
All right. Well, here's what I'm going to say. And it's not 50-50, but it is completely biased. Well, I won't say biased, just personal opinion. This cigar is amazing. Just so you guys know, in case you're curious and you're new to cigars, this is a brand new cigar. This is a cigar that the world hasn't seen yet. You guys are one of the first to smoke it on the planet. Don Doroteo just came out with this version of their Salt of the Earth line. This is my first time having it. So you guys get to see not only the different pairings that we're going to do, which are pretty interesting today, but also on the cigar side, I haven't had this before. This is what I would do if I haven't had a cigar before. I would test it with some different pairings and see what's going on. So this is going to be completely candid. You guys aren't seeing any strategy behind this. First time having this cigar. I trust Don Doroteo, Juan, the owner. He is a great guy. I knew they made great cigars. I've had all the other ones. I've had the other version of the Salt of the Earth. I wanted to make sure we put this in your hands before anybody else's. So there you go.
This right out of the gate, I hope I nail it down by the end of the episode, because this has a flavor that is more unique than most of what we've had so far. It's something new that I haven't had yet. It's a specific note, and I have an idea of what it might be, but I gotta keep trying, and I hope I nail it down by the end of the episode. Remind me to follow up with that.
Yeah, I definitely will. I think immediately you get a nice cracked pepper. I think it's not just your normal, just whatever pepper. It's like a pepper that you get that you can tell is different at, a high-end steakhouse. Like something you would see on the crispiness of the steak on the outside. Like it's something. There's a lot more going on there. I was gonna make a joke about how it's not pepper, it's salt, but that's too easy.
Pepper of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's complex though.
It's complex. There's something there that I can't nail down yet. I got to think about that. And speaking of Juan, it is that owns the company, correct? You know the
Yes,
cigars better than I do. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he directly recommended one of the pairings that we have here with us.
he did.
Okay, I thought that's where it came from, and so I'm very excited to try that for sure. But before we get there, our first pairing, we've got Bushmills Black Bush. Now, this is an Irish whiskey, so we've had it on the show before. It's very smooth, very sweet, very mellow and light. I'm a little bit worried. I don't want to make anybody biased here, but I'm a little bit worried it might be too mellow and light for this cigar. But I had a little bit of inside information that the cigar goes well with sweet things, and this is a rather sweet whiskey. So I figure we try it out.
I can't really. What did we pair it with last time?
Oh, good question. I'll check in our notes because I keep track of all of our rankings in case we want to use those in the future. So let me see what we paired it with.
Okay. Well, had a couple puffs, which, by the way, burn line, crisp, nearly razor thin, as expected with Don Doroteo. But the first sip, interesting. I feel like it didn't change much, which was surprising.
Okay, I haven't sipped the whiskey yet, so I will do that next. But we paired Bushmills Black Bush with the GTO La Cura was what we had it with.
Two heavier cigars. I won't say heavy, but heavier cigars. Could be interesting. Were we fond of the last? Sorry, everybody. Sorry, last. Were we fond of the last pairing?
Let's find out. I think if I have these in the correct order, you had a 7.4 and I had a 5, so I must not have been very fond of it. So I'm interested to see what happens now.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, moment of truth. First puff.
Yeah, I've got my opinion on this one. Very interesting. Not incredibly surprised one way, but the other way very surprised. But I want to see your opinion first.
Okay. This is a weird one. I feel like neither has changed very dramatically. Maybe it's because of that last one that we had. Everything was changing like crazy. These are both staying pretty solid.
No, I'm getting the same thing. I don't think either of them changed. That's really weird.
It's really
because
weird.
That is uncommon when it comes to pairings. It's not often that you find a pairing where nothing happens, but it does happen. What I didn't expect. I'm not surprised that the cigar stayed the same. I think it is bold. I think it's a very unique, distinct cigar, which Don Doroteo is kind of known to do. But I thought it would definitely change the whiskey. I thought this was going to be antagonistic, 100%. I'm kind of expecting all of these to be antagonistic because the cigar is so unique and bold. But I don't think that this Black Bush did anything.
Dude, you took the words out of my mouth. I thought this cigar was going to steamroll the Black Bush once I smoked it. Because at first I thought, oh, Black Bush is sweet. They might go together. I puffed the cigar and I was like, you're not even going to taste the Black Bush anymore.
Yep.
Somehow, weirdly, it still just tastes like Black Bush. I am mind blown by that.
I'm trying to get something.
And it still does. Yeah, I went back and forth.
It's
and
neutral.
It still does.
I mean, this is a neutral pairing, guys. It's when you come across these pairings, and I've had them before. I think this may be the first. I think there may have been another one that we came across. I can't remember exactly, but this is at least one the second, if it's not the first, neutral that we've come across. When you come across this, guys, if you like go to a lounge and you're trying to experiment and you come across something like this, you'll be like me and Chris right now. We're just
Yeah.
okay. Well, but if
It's
you
almost
love this cigar and you love Blackbush, I guess you're having a good time. I don't know.
exactly. It's
I mean,
almost impressive.
it's really impressive. I don't think I could do that on purpose ever.
Yeah, it's like and they're so different too because the Blackbush is such a wildly different profile. Imagine you took hot sauce and ice cream and then they both still just tasted like hot sauce, like they didn't change each other at
Yeah,
all. It's like, what?
it doesn't make any sense
No, it doesn't
because they're
make any
so
sense.
they're so specific, and you think, yeah, you're exactly right. It's like you pour the hot sauce on, and it's just like just repelled. Like they're just not. They're just avoiding each other,
100%. That
and
is
they're
wild.
refusing to play together at all.
That's definitely the first time I have experienced this to such an extreme. I mean, it's weird. It's like oil and vinegar. It's like they're just not even mixing with each other.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm kind of impressed. I'm almost impressed by that. Because if you like
Yeah.
Blackbush and you like this cigar, like you said,
Yeah.
wow. All right.
I'm gonna yeah. I've finished it because I was going back and forth. I'm gonna have to pour just a little bit more for later because I'm hoping when we come back to it, maybe we'll see something. But I can tell you for a fact, if we pour this next one and I don't tell a difference, I'm gonna freak out.
Right. Right. The next one was recommended to us by Juan. He said that we got to try it with root beer. There was a couple recommendations, and the one that I jumped at because I love root beer was root beer. So, yes, I do have my root beer in a Glencairn because out of habit, I grabbed a Glencairn. And so I was like, this is just what we're doing. We're just putting it in the Glencairn because it was a 2-liter. I wasn't going to drink out of the 2-liter. So,
Yeah.
so that's what
That
I
would
did.
have been entertaining though.
That's true. Yeah. It wouldn't even fit on my small clip camera on the side here. It'd be like way off.
I feel like that would be I don't know if I've ever drank straight out of a 2-liter.
What? Really?
Is it not like just like trying to drink out of a water hose?
I mean, it's tough, but when I was a kid, that was like a treat. It was like, oh, there's only one person's worth left in this 2-liter. Mom, can I drink right out of the 2-liter? And like that was my thing. I
Okay,
loved it.
no. That yes, but like a full 2-liter.
No, I think that might be like a red flag for a psychopath. If you just buy a 2-liter and just
That's what I was thinking. And you were like, what? And I was like, people do that?
Yeah, no, I've never done that.
Okay. No, I finished off a 2-liter.
Okay.
But even half full, I feel like it would just I don't know. I'm not a
That
fan
would
of 2-liters. I feel like the carbonation goes way too quickly.
Yeah,
But
that's very true.
in the spirit,
Hey, all right. Solidarity.
solidarity, baby.
All right. For those just listening, he just poured some in a Glencairn so that we're both drinking root beer out of Glencairns like weirdos, but that's okay.
Yeah, we didn't both just take our shirt off.
Solidarity.
Or maybe we did. You'll have to watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, you got to run over to YouTube if you want to know.
All
I
right.
am digging this cigar. This is complex. It's got a kick to it. I think this is just what I was in the mood for, but man, it's hitting all the right spots for me.
Oh yeah. All right. We got a little plan going on. Thank God. Oh my gosh. I was so worried. I was like, the
Right.
first one was just so mute. I'm like, guys, you don't understand how hard it is to do a podcast like this where typically the content itself gives you stuff to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it doesn't, it's just crickets.
It's like, yeah, so nothing's happening. On to the next one.
We're going to try and keep you intrigued, but
right.
this is nothing.
Oh, man.
This is a back and forth one.
Big time. I think every time I go back and forth, I catch something a little bit different. Plus, I love root beer, so I could just sit and drink root beer.
Interesting. Guys,
Yeah.
apologies for the delay.
No, yeah. You guys know when there's a delay like this, our brains are short-circuiting because something interesting is happening. All right, I'll dive in. The root beer, so sweet, so creamy, so vanilla-y. I mean, just turned up to 10. And then the cigar, that cracked pepper is somehow cranked up, but not in a harsh way.
Correct.
It's like the difference between harshness and body, which I talk about with whiskey a lot. Like there's more body. That doesn't mean it's more harsh. Doesn't mean it burns more. It's just more present. It fills your mouth up more with that cracked pepper flavor.
But the vanilla transfers.
Mm-hmm.
It everything that you may, if you're just a typical Connecticut smoker, light cigar smoker, because Connecticut's can be crazy. I get it. But if you're a typical light cigar guy, and this cigar, when you tried it for the first time, you were like, whoa, that's a lot. This is going to help it be more approachable. It's really going to soften any harshness, like Chris was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to bring that cracked pepper to a smooth pepper, which is almost an oxymoron, but
That's a
but
good
that
way to put
vanilla
it, though.
comes in and really saves the day if this is too harsh for you. I am kind of on this exact cigar kick right now, so
Mm-hmm.
I am super enjoying this cigar. And by the way, I mean, I just have to say, I mean, look at that ash. That is incredible.
Yeah. Check in with me later because I totally destroyed my first light, but it is correcting. It is correcting, so we're getting there.
I mean, you're talking about no imperfections, not even a crack. It's almost just like a white, but I don't like a perfectly white one. White ash. I like exactly this color. It's got a little bit of a gray tint to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
I don't know enough to know what type of ash I like, but I do like when I don't have to keep lighting it, and it is correcting so far. So it's one of those where I'm like, yeah, I totally got the whole foot of this thing, and then I puffed it a few times, and I'm like, half of this is turning red. Luckily, I have my little clip camera on the side here, and I could see it, and I'm like, just the bottom half of this is red. I did not light the top half of the cigar. Whoops.
But I think what we can say is a consensus, at least this far.
Mm-hmm.
We are happy, and this is playing. This is not like the first one.
Very true. Very true. There's more going on here. Now, what I'm curious about, especially because, normally with the whiskey, it's like it could be hard to say if it's changing or not since you haven't drank too much whiskey. I'm assuming you've drank root beer in your life. So,
Yeah.
Do you think the root beer is changing? Do you think this is antagonistic or complementary?
I think it's antagonistic. I think the root beer is playing a little bit left and right, but mostly staying right at where it is. Typically,
Okay.
in my opinion, when Dr. Pepper is one of my favorite pairings, definitely my favorite non-alcoholic pairing, and it typically just makes a cigar a little bit more complex. I never really notice a change in it, and I'm getting the same thing here. I'm not getting much out of it, any difference, but I think it's 100% playing with the cigar, so I think it's antagonistic 100%.
Okay. I agree with you in general. I think the cigar changed a lot more than the root beer. For me, I do feel like the root beer got a lot like a sweet cream flavor to it, like almost more like a root beer float. It started to remind me of, but maybe I'm overthinking it.
No, I mean that could be true. I think the first one threw me off so much. I'm not sure.
That first one was weird. That was weird. It's so hard to. Never would have expected that in a million years.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Let's move on to number 3 because number 3 is going to be interesting. So for number 3, we've got 4 Roses Small Batch Select, which we've had on the show before. And This is punchy. This is body. This is spice. This is oak. The cigar is punchy. The cigar is spice. The cigar is body. What's going to happen when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? We're about to find out. That's what we're going to try right now. I'm very excited.
I am really excited to see. This is the one that I was looking forward to the most because I knew it had a punch in there, because it had an oomph. And while the root beer being involved was something where I was like, yeah, man, it makes sense. I really wanted to stack something against this cigar. I wanted it to be challenged. I wanted it to have a piece of it that was trying to, not even, I wouldn't say try and, attack it to where it's going to be mellowed, but I wanted something that's going to stand up against it. So I was really excited to do this one.
Yes. And having tried this now, I am astounded. So at least for me, for all you cigar guys, Four Roses, especially the small batch select, is kind of the Maduro of bourbons. It's like punchy, but sweet at the same time, and like bold with sweetness. And this just took all the spice out of it, and it's like super sweet, almost like cotton candy fruit. A strain I've never, whatever this note is that I'm not nailing down yet, I've never got it from Four Roses before. Very strange.
This is what I wanted. This is
Mm-hmm.
good. This is good. It's exactly what I was waiting for. It's a complementary pairing through and through. I don't think you would disagree with me on that one. Both
Nope.
flavors are just being just absolutely exploding in your mouth. It's great every time. It almost gets better every time you go back and forth. Wow.
Yeah. I'm like addicted to going back and forth right now. I was even going to say, complimentary right off the bat as well. I was like, these are both so elevated in the most interesting way. The Four Roses, I think cotton candy might be the right note. It's got this cotton candy sweet flavor to it. I have literally never gotten from this bottle of Four Roses before. And then the cigar, it's elevated into its sweetness a little bit more. The pepper of both of them are kind of playing off of each other a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It is so unique. What a unique pairing.
I already know where my rating's going to lie on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's quite clear where our top three is going to go in what
Yeah.
direction. That one's not hard. But what I
Not
will
even.
say again, and I'm going to be a little bit of a cigar snob here, you don't find that very often. That burn line, that consistent of an ash, very few, I don't know what you want to call it, just not mistakes, but flaws
Mm-hmm.
in it. I mean, I can sit here and just up and down. It's so solid. The burn line's crisp. That does not happen for all the whiskey experts out there and cigar noobs like Chris.
Mm-hmm.
That does not happen on accident, ever. Because
Right.
all cigars are hand rolled, there is no way to accidentally do that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
saying somebody could accidentally paint the Mona Lisa. There is no way that happens on accident. I mean, that is, every time I smoke a cigar and it ends up like this, I immediately start paying way more attention.
Right.
I'm like, holy crap. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not even the cigar necessarily, it's the brand. Don
Mm-hmm.
Doroteo, a lot of people don't know this brand. It's a small brand, it's newer. It's 3 years old, I believe. But what I will say, here's a little fun fact about Don Doroteo and Juan, the owner. So Don Doroteo is, if I'm not mistaken, Juan's grandfather's name.
Oh, okay.
And he's paying homage to his grandfather who made cigars. And again, there's a little bit of, I may miss this story just a little bit, but you guys can look it up. he made cigars for La Aurora for forever. I know he was a part of the La Aurora rise, and then there was a gap. And they owned these farms forever and made tobacco for La Aurora. I believe they owned a factory for La Aurora and rolled a lot of cigars and the whole nine. And Juan was in and out of, he's a young guy. He's in and out of a lot of different things. He was in the tech space pretty heavy, made a little bit of money there, decided I want to go back to my family roots, started Don Doroteo Cigars, got a great team around him. They're in the Dominican and they have a great, I mean, they're full scale from farm, factory, like this one you can see on the band because I like how creatively it was made too, that it says La Aurora on the band because I believe it was made in their factory. So they've got the whole thing now too. They've got an entire excursion, an entire experiential event you can go through with Don Doroteo. You go down there, you experience the kind of tobacco culture and everything, and then you move along and you see the Dominican culture. You go through the whole experience of everything. It's a really cool thing. I have a couple buddies that already did it. Juan told me about it last week when we were in Vegas together. They are doing so many things right for a new company, but the one thing that you, as a new cigar company especially, and I'm sure it's the same exact thing in the whiskey and bourbon and scotch world, when you're a new company, you can have the stories, you can have all of this whatever, kind of flashy stuff, if you will, but at the end of the day, if your product isn't just superb, you're going to die. You're not going to last. And there's a reason they were the number one boutique cigar of the year for Enthusiast Report magazine. They are getting a lot of attention, and I think they deserve all of it.
Yeah, I think every ounce of that praise is worth it. And this is coming from somebody who knows nothing about this brand or other brands for that matter. I know literally just the big box brands is all that I know.
Yeah.
This is one of the most complex cigars I've smoked in a very long time. This has so much going on with it. The note that I couldn't nail down in the beginning, it's like you mentioned the cracked pepper, and that I think is a good descriptor because it's not like black pepper. Like if I say a cigar is peppery,
Right.
usually it's got that tingle to it. It's got that little bit of burn on the back of my tongue. This is like cracked pepper that has that specific savory taste to it, that savory aspect to it, almost like peppered beef jerky, how it had, but not quite as beefy, obviously, but how it has that little bit of a savoriness to it. It was reminding me a little bit of almost like a chili powder, or like not quite as aggressive as a chili powder, almost like tahini, if you've had that, like that seasoning that people use. Just just a sprinkle of it that was hard for me to hunt out. I mean, like I said, in the beginning, I couldn't figure out what it was. And then it's also got that leather. It's got that chocolatey. It's got that sweetness to it. I could sit here for the whole cigar, I think, and pull out different notes from it because it's that interesting. This is reminding me a lot. For a long time, I said my favorite cigar was the Tatuaje 7th Capa Especial, and I haven't had it for a very long time. So I could be way off right now, but this is reminding me of at least the feeling that I had when I first had that cigar, where I was like, I could analyze this for hours. That's how I feel right now.
Yeah, I would say Tatuaje's on the same line where they never really make a cigar where it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
Like Pete Johnson owns Tatuaje, and he always does something very specific. Very like their cigars are there's no mistake in any of the blends. There's no, oh, we just need to come out with something and woohoo. Like just because there's a trade show, we need to launch something. Like
Mm-hmm.
they are very focused, and I think Don Doroteo's on the same path. Now I want to mix something up here, Chris.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and pour some more Bushmills, and I want to
Okay.
go back to it like it's a fourth pairing.
Okay. I did jump back to the Bushmills, so I'm very curious what happens when you jump back to the Bushmills. I did it because I typed
Mm.
in my ratings real quick while you were talking about the brand. That way we wouldn't have some dead air while Chris types in his ratings. And I'm excited to see what you think.
Mm.
Because this is I mean, I puff it and I'm like, okay, this is a peppery, punchy cigar. And I go away from it and I puff it again and I'm like, oh, wait, it was really sweet just now. Like that was really sweet. That was vanilla. That was a little bit of chocolate. That was strange. And I go away from it. I come back and I'm like, oh, that's kind of like savory. Like that's got a little bit of an MSG, to get technical, umami type flavor to it. It's weird. It's weird. I like it. It's so complex.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I do have my ratings done. And I do have my rankings done, but I'm going to wait till you do your Bushmills tasting again to see what you get from it.
Okay. I think the cigar is playing a little bit more than it was.
Okay.
But the Bushmills, I'm not seeing much. But that may be the cigar opinion. What are you getting?
I was feeling the same way. I maybe just also I'm not, as much of a cigar guy. I didn't notice much change in the cigar, but for sure, I took another sip of the Bushmills, and I was like, okay, we've smoked almost a third of this cigar. That Bushmills is going to taste different. And I took a sip of it, and I'm like, that tastes like Bushmills. That tastes exactly the same as the first time I ever had Bushmills. That's what it tastes like. It's amazing. It's almost incredibly impressive that they haven't changed at all.
I mean, it is incredibly impressive. There's no explanation. I mean, you could have anything in your fridge, combine two things, and they should both taste different from what you're having.
Right.
I don't understand the science of what's going on to have something neutrally affect another thing.
Right. I don't get
And
it at
vice
all.
versa is, I mean, this is a unicorn of pairings.
I'll be honest with you. Like before this, I didn't think that was really possible. I never would have ever guessed that, especially with how I've done in-depth tastings of this Bushmills, with how much I know the flavor profile of this Bushmills, I would have never guessed that I wouldn't notice something different about it. And I'm not noticing very much different about, like, it tastes like Bushmills.
Occasionally, if I take enough puffs in a row, I'll get a little bit more smokiness. But I think it's because, I mean, right now I do feel a little heat. I think I am smoking a little too fast because I'm trying to pull something out. So, I'm going at it a little rough. So maybe that's the only reason I'm noticing any change in the slightest. But it's not. It's all grasping at straws at this point.
Yeah.
So Bushmills, Don Doroteo, I mean, if you love them both, have them. If you hate them both, definitely don't have this pairing.
Definitely.
That would
But
be
if
a
you,
0. If you don't like this cigar, and I don't know how you wouldn't like this cigar, I think every person who likes cigars at all would like this cigar because of the complexity. Even if you're a light cigar smoker, take your time, have a meal before. I don't know if I'd recommend the Four Roses on that end because
yeah,
then you're maybe like way overwhelmed.
right.
But have a root beer. I think that's a great pairing if you're
Oh, yeah.
really trying to elevate your cigar game. Root beer is a great kind of just base. Everybody's had it. Everybody knows the taste. Everybody knows the flavor. It's not like you're gonna also get that alcohol in the mix where if you're going back and forth, and then all of a sudden, oh crap, I had too much alcohol. Now, now everything's mixed.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I would say. I mean, this cigar, I think it's for all smokers. For me, I'm a big fan. I'm just gonna go out and say it. For me in the ratings, I'm just trying to figure out what level of 9 that Four Roses is.
Right. I one more thing I have to say before I give away my rankings is, if you like Irish whiskey and you like cigars, I've had enough Irish whiskeys with cigars to know it's so hard to have an Irish whiskey with a cigar because they're so mellow, they're so light, they get steamrolled, especially if you like full-bodied cigars like this or full flavor cigars like this. It's really hard to have Irish whiskey with a cigar. So the one instance where this Bushmills is an absolute home run grand slam knockout of the park is if you love Irish whiskey and you like more bodied cigars, fuller bodied cigars, because it still tastes like Bushmills, which is once again, I can't say it enough. It's amazing to me, and I know there's somebody listening that fits that bill. You're gonna love this pairing. This pairing is like made for you.
Yep. Could not agree more. All right, I think we're ready.
Okay,
I'll start off with the rankings
go for it.
because it's easy.
Right.
We're going 3 is the 4. No, I'm just kidding. 3 is the Bushmills, 2 is the root beer, and 1 is the Four Roses. I mean, I'd be shocked if yours wasn't any different.
Nope, it's exactly the same. I think
Sometimes it's
Bushmills is
easy.
it's a knockout of the park if you love Bushmills. For me, I would have liked to see some change. So yeah, it does come in third for me. Now,
All right.
since you took it away with the rankings, I'll take it away with the ratings. So I'll start off with Bushmills. I gave this a little bump because of that fact. The fact that I'm kind of impressed that it didn't get steamrolled. For that reason, I went with 6.5 for my Bushmills.
Okay. I'm going to take one more sip. You go straight into the root beer since you have them. I'm taking one more sip of the Bushmills. I want to get it right.
Okay, yep. Root beer, I went a little bit higher. Now, this still scores slightly low for me, but I feel like it's unfair because I love whiskey so much. So I feel like if you are just looking for a good pairing, I'm a little bit biased here. I went with 6.8, and that's because I'm the whiskey guy. I really like whiskey with my cigars. So, however, if you told me you can't have alcohol with this cigar, you have to have a non-alcoholic pairing, then I think this would score very high because they do play with each other and it does make the cigar taste different. And that's impressive for something that doesn't have any alcohol in it.
All right. So Bushmills, I'm going, and this is not, I want to be very clear, this is not based on the cigar in it. I was kind of like half and half on it because the last time with the new Cuba, I was very specific and I was like, well, it's because of the cigar.
Mm-hmm.
This time, it's purely because of the pairing. It's not because of the cigar, purely because of the pairing. I'm going 5 flat.
Okay.
With Bushmills.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think I would have it again. I'm a big fan of play when I have a pairing. And I like the Bushmills. I'm not a fan of it. But something that neutral is just not that fun for me when I look at a pairing. So that, I should probably keep my perspectives a little bit more in line, but I think that one is still even at a 5 flat just because it lets you down. And I would have it again, but I would have a lot of things before.
Yep.
I didn't do 4.9 because that's our cutoff. The fours are you'd never have it again type situation, pretty much.
Right.
So 5 flat. I mean, would I have it? Sure. I like the cigar. I like the whiskey. I mean, now that I know what I'm getting into, then I can mentally prepare for that. But for everybody out there, I mean, if you're not ready, you're going to have that and you're going to be kind of let down.
Agreed.
Now, when it comes to the root beer, I'm going 8 flat.
Wow. All right.
I'm going 8 flat. I was almost 7.5 because I was like, it's good. Like 7.5 in my opinion is like, it's good. Somebody asked me, I'm just going to say good. Would you recommend it? Sure. And that's where like it kind of ends. But I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it played with the cigar a lot. I liked how it played with the cigar. I enjoyed the pairing. I would do it again. I wouldn't pick a lot of things over it. So I landed at 8.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's respectable. Yeah, like I said, I think I might be biased because I focus so much on the whiskey. So I will reveal my Four Roses. This was a tough one. Because I try to manage expectations when I get into the nines. This is obviously into the nines. If you couldn't tell by the way we were talking about it.
Yeah.
I went with 9.1, and here's why. So 9 already is like if I go to a lounge and I see it, that's what I'm going for. So already, this is the one that I'm picking. but I do think there's a potential that there's something crazier out there. I always go back to that Ardbeg pairing that we did because that was like mind blowing. That was like, what is happening right now? So I know that that's possible, but I do think I wouldn't pick anything else. If I was just like off the cuff had to pick something, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going with that Four Roses small batch select. So 9.1.
It's funny because I'm very similar in the same lane. I really love the pairing. It plays super well. The Four Roses small batch, for my palate, is almost a little much of a punch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm thinking the same vein where there's something that has a similar vibe as the Four Roses small batch, but is a little easier. And it'll play a little bit more. Won't have as much as a bite.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going 9.2. And I had
Okay.
that before you even said it. I was thinking the same thing though. I was like, it's delicious. And nines, I mean, guys, 9. Again, you see it, you do it. Like until we, smoke this again and find something better, Chris and I are never going to pick a different pairing with this cigar. That's pretty much what we're saying, at least, is where we're trying to get to. But also that there's room for something that could surprise us.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I think, one of those days where I'm just not feeling bourbon or I'm not feeling the Four Roses, maybe I could find something better. But if I am feeling bourbon, which a lot of times I am, that's what I'm going to grab because that was impressive. That was a
I
very
do
impressive
think
pair.
if something was going to trump it, it would be a bourbon. I don't think it'll
Mm-hmm.
be a Scotch, an Irish whiskey, Australian single malt, any of those intricacies. I do think it would end up being a bourbon because of
Mm-hmm.
how that sweetness played with the cigar.
Agreed. I think a bourbon with I have to try some different flavor profiles to figure it out. But I think if I tried some more bourbons, maybe I could find something better. But it would be tough. I can guarantee that it'd be tough.
Yep. 100% agree. Well, if you guys did not get this cigar in the Perfect Pairing Club pack, I really apologize. I almost want to call Juan and be like, hey, dude, we got to do some like special promotion. Everybody's going to listen to this podcast and want this cigar. And we need to try and figure out how to get some more in for like a future pack as a bonus cigar or something. But if you didn't, we're going to find more like this. So make sure you take advantage of our code, the PPP10, for 10% off the Perfect Pairing Club. Because this, I mean, as the deeper we get into these podcasts and these pairings and these cigars, the more we're going to find things like this that are just diamonds in the rough that you may have never heard of Don Doroteo. You may not even like Four Roses small batch at the moment, and you're going to find some crazy stuff. So definitely take advantage of that while you can.
Yeah, and maybe as a little bonus, I might be making a video here soon with another one of these where I try it with a bunch of bourbons because I'm pretty psyched up about this pairing. This is pretty solid pairing. I do have to reveal our trivia. So,
There you go.
true or false? When you go to the store and you buy something and you know that your milk's not going to poison you, you know that it's milk, you know that your apple juice is apple juice, it's because of bourbon. This was not really a trick question. It's true. Okay. It's almost a trick question because I know that there's somebody listening who could say, actually, it's all spirits, but bourbon was kind of the driving factor here. So what happened was, I'll take you back to 1897. The United States court came out with the decision to pass the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897, which said that bourbon had to be, actually, it applies to multiple different spirits, but you had to make it, to call it bottled and bond, you had to make it under government supervision and follow all these specific rules, aged exactly 4 years. There's a bunch of other stuff going on with it. And the reason that you can now go to the store and you can now buy something and you can now trust it is because we have consumer protection laws. Those are laws that make sure companies are being honest with you about what they're selling. The Bottled and Bond Act of 1897 was the first ever consumer protection law in the United States. So it was the first law, and it was because people were selling bourbon That was not bourbon. They were selling bourbon that was cut with all kinds of nasty things, formaldehyde being among the mix there, and dyeing it with different things like tobacco and just all sorts of things that
Tobacco.
you're not supposed to drink. And because of that, the government said, we got to do something about this. People are losing confidence. They're not buying bourbon because they're afraid it's going to poison them. And so they came out with the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897. So somewhat indirectly, bourbon is responsible for consumer protection laws, and consumer protection laws are the reason that you can now go to the store and buy something and have pretty good faith that the government has checked in and said, okay, yes, this apple juice is apple juice. It's not dyed caramel water with formaldehyde in it. So fun fact for you there.
1897, huh?
1897, yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, you know, the United States really grew up with bourbon. And I actually just recently on Whiskey Noobs walked through that timeline, and there's a lot of little Easter eggs like that in there that are really interesting. But I think that's one of my favorites is that consumer protection showed up because of bourbon.
That's how much the United States likes to drink.
Yeah, especially bourbon.
Well, thank you, bourbon, for letting me know that my milk is not poison.
Yep. Fair enough.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. It was a blast. This one was a little bit interesting. It was like A to Z in terms of where we were going with the pairings. I don't know if we've seen something this definitive in terms of 1 through 3, but we also haven't seen one of these pairings be so good. And this, I think, is a general consensus. I mean, again, my second ash here is absolutely flawless. So I think it's general consensus, one of the best cigars, at least Chris and I have had so far. So stay tuned for more. And Chris, I'm going to go ahead and finish this pairing. So cheers, man.
Cheers.